What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 8 of The Coach and the Couch Potato. As always, I am Jeremy the Couch Potato. Opposite side of the screen, we've got Coach Slate. What is good, sir? How was your week?
Yeah, it was eventful week. Got some sickness going through the house right now, but we're powering through. We started the CrossFit Open this weekend, so I'm still sore, not able to really move much. But it was fun. My wife absolutely crushed it, so that was fun to see. But yeah, man, things are good though. Can't keep us down too long. How about you, man?
Good week. Was visiting with some family I haven't seen in a minute last night. Got shout outs on the podcast for both of us.
Yeah,
We are headed into USBC sectionals week for the Sun and the college bowling team.
nice.
So Friday they do individuals. Saturday and Sunday team. Top 4 will move on to nationals. So you can't win a natty if you don't get a dance ticket. So
Yeah, that is true.
let's hope we get there.
Yeah.
So yeah, good week, and hopefully more of the same this week. Um, so yeah, cool episode on tap today.
Yeah.
Um, spring ball. We're gonna hit on some spring ball stuff. I mean, we've thrown little tidbits out there and thoughts on spring ball across
Yeah.
the prior episodes, but today we're really gonna dive into it. And then we said last week was the toughest Mount Rushmore. That doesn't hold a candle to the one
Yeah.
today.
This one was
Um,
brutal.
we're gonna do the wide receiver room, and there's so many different ways you can cut that one.
Yes.
But yeah, we'll get there at the end of the show. Just wanted to start with like a little spring ball rundown in case some of our listeners don't know truly what that encompasses.
Yeah.
Um, spring ball starts on March 5th, so Tuesday of this week. It's made up of 15 practices. The school can divvy those practices out however they want to. Obviously, as we've discussed before, the early enrollee freshmen, this is huge for them. Not
Yeah.
only to get used to what your practices are going to be made of, and these practices, and you've watched some, so I can't wait to hear your breakdown of some of that. But it's not like these are 2-a-day murderers row.
Yeah.
No, well, we don't even get the St. Valentine's Day massacre anymore before spring ball.
No. No.
Um, and then it concludes with the spring game on Saturday, the 13th of April in the shoe.
Yep.
So as somebody who has taken in some of those spring practices, give us a little behind the curtain.
Yeah, man. The spring. Gosh, I little tangent right here. I just wish Ohio had full-fledged spring ball. For high school students. I wish we had it, but that's another conversation. But the spring practices are really geared towards that development. It's basically what the stuff that you would do the first week of actual camp in the fall is really what you're kind of installing. May not be with the same intensity, but all the spring practices that we have had the opportunity to go to, there's a ton of teaching that is happening. And especially with us this year, obviously with the new offensive coordinator, and some new coaches on the staff, there's definitely going to be a lot of teaching that's going on. This is a perfect time for those young guys to get a lot of reps, which you'll see during spring practices. A lot of those veteran guys, like for us, think of Travion Henderson, think of, Jack Sawyer and JT Tuamalau. They all practice, they go through the drills, but they may not get the lion's share of the reps. You're going to see a lot of those younger guys really start to get those reps. And like you hit on with the early enrollees, I think that's so important. When you do enroll early, you get that opportunity to have that spring practice, get your feet wet. So it's really just what you would see the first week of camp, but it's not as intense. But it's such a pivotal time because the coaches really want to see that development. And obviously with the new coaching staff or new offensive coordinator, you really want to be able to get the ball rolling on some of the new verbiage, some of the new schemes that are going to be introduced. So spring practice is one of my one of my favorite times because it's like you truly get to coach. You're not preparing, to play the team up north the next week or anything like that. You truly get to focus on the small little details so that when fall camp comes, you can hit the ground 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you guys get to do the coaches clinic the 2 days before the spring game. And to tangent your tangent about spring football, I'm going to guess a lot of people that pay attention to this podcast at this point don't realize the nuances that are the OHSAA. And a guy that we're going to talk about a whole lot at some point in the next 6 months, Trey McNutt, is currently in the middle of an absolute war, and I don't think it's a fight that the OHSAA wants. Because I look for Ryan Day to get involved pretty soon, and that's the last thing they want. And that's a whole other conversation. And that's something we're going to monitor to go on. As a buddy of mine told me yesterday, though, he goes, Jeremy's favorite organization, the OHSAA. If you want somebody who may dislike the OHSAA more than I do, go look at Bobby Carpenter's Twitter feed.
Oh, he goes in.
So, shout out BCarp3. Great follow if you don't follow. So going into spring practice, obviously the one thing that does take place and get looked at are position battles. And there are a few, as crazy as that sounds with the depth that this team brings back. I feel like this is an extremely, extremely important spring for the O-line.
Absolutely.
This is a group that ended the year on, let's just call a spade, a terrible note. Missouri made the Ohio State offensive line look like an 8th grade team playing against a high school team.
It was bad. Oh, it was so bad.
So there's a lot of question marks there. That was supposed to be the group that kind of, set the tone. And Coach Kelly was interviewed this week, and he was like, I want to score points, and I don't care how. But in order to score points, you've got to have an O-line. I think that the biggest question mark, obviously, is who emerges. I feel like the left-hand side of the line, we are pretty set. Josh Simmons, Donovan Jackson, who came back, and then Seth McLaughlin. Right side gets real interesting. With McLaughlin coming in, you're already okay. Where do we put Carson Heinzman? And then you had Josh Fryer. You lose Matt Jones, who is doing his thing at the combine today. I think at the end of spring, just gut feeling, I think Josh Fryer stays at right tackle. I think that with all of the scuttlebutt out there, that your guy and guy of the show, Luke, I think Luke Montgomery is going to be the right guard. I think there's just way too much smoke out there. Now, he may go into camp and just kill it, and they're like, we can't not have him at tackle. So that's the way I see it shaking out. But, how do you think it plays?
Yeah, man, it's offensive line is just such a integral part of everything that the offense is trying to do, obviously. So, like Chip Kelly said, like he wants to score points, and everything starts up front in the trenches. I think the left side, like you said, is pretty set in stone. Seth McLaughlin, he transferred here to start. Like, he's not going to come here, to sit the bench. So, you could pencil him in up front. I've said it a million times. I'm very biased towards Luke, but it's not because, I just know him, and coached him. It's because I think he's one of the best athletes on that team. To have his size, to have his athleticism, to have his versatility. He had an interview that was up on 11 Warriors yesterday, and, he absolutely killed it. Just talking about, doing whatever it takes to help the team win and to get on the field the fastest, whether that's at right guard, at right tackle. So, I know he's going to have to compete. He has recognized that there are some other people like Tegra, like a George Fitzpatrick, like Josh Fryer, like Carson Heinzman, that he's going to have to battle with. But I think he's going to come out on top. I personally think he is more suited to be on the interior, but I do think that he has the athleticism to play right tackle. The big thing that you're going to see the difference in him and a lot of your traditional right and left tackles is his height. He is legitimately right around 6'4". Typically you see the guys that are 6'6" or taller as a tackle, but I think he's going to pencil in at that right guard. I do think Fryer he wasn't amazing at right tackle, but I don't think he was as bad as people thought he was as well. The one thing that we have to remember, Josh Simmons last year was his first year playing left tackle. Fryer last year was his first year playing right tackle. So you had two guys at pivotal spots that were in their first year, and they both developed and they got better as the year progressed. So I expect that to continue to happen. I don't want to say anything's a given though. I think, you've heard a lot of George Fitzpatrick here lately with his athleticism and what he could bring, to that right tackle position, so, and obviously you have Tegra as well. So, I don't want to just say oh, these are the guys, but I if I had to pick, my early favorites would be Luke and Fryer to be those guys on the right side. But it's definitely going to be an interesting and fun battle because you've got looking at 4 or 5 guys for 2 spots. So you want competition where you're going to get it. So I'm excited about that and I'm excited to see how it shakes out too.
Yeah, Tegra is definitely a sleeper. He's got amazing size, very violent.
Yes.
And I like his mindset. So that one's going to be interesting to see. I mean, you could see a scenario where Hensman and Fryer are both the odd guys out. It's going to be real interesting to see. But at the end of the day, I think that, I have full faith in this staff to get it right.
Yep.
The next position, it's kind of crazy to put this position on here as far as it being an important spring for them, and that's zone 6. There is a boatload of talent, but anytime you lose a guy like Marv, it's almost a reload or a reboot. Because now it's different roles. Because a lot of times, like the Notre Dame game, Emeka was able to eat because they bracketed Marv. I mean, Marvin was not getting the ball against Notre Dame. And kudos to them. They did a great job.
Yeah, they did.
But it was the same thing that everybody says. You can't cover them all. So if you're going to contribute 2 guys to Marv, then somebody's going to eat. The biggest thing, we've talked about at the quarterback room is reps, even with these guys. Now, granted, you can put 3, 4, 5 receivers in a set, so it's a little bit easier. But it's going to be interesting because there's a boatload of talent, but there's a lot of question marks too. The 23 guys, and the 22 guys to some extent. More so the 22s have just kind of blended in. You have not heard a whole lot about any of them.
No.
Obviously, I think when it all shakes out, that you're looking at Emeka, Carnell Tate, and I still think Jeremiah Smith starts. I'll be interested to see, though. I could see a scenario where you kind of do the Garrett Wilson trick with Emeka and put him in the slot and find the true mismatches.
Yeah, and honestly, when I think of Ohio State and the receivers that we've had, I think of, that idea of finding those mismatches and not necessarily pinpointing or locking in guys in one specific spot. I really love that idea because you have some extremely versatile guys. Emeka and Tate and Brandon Ennis, I think, I think are some of the best, versatile type receivers that you can have. The guy that I'm most excited about in that room is Brandon Ennis because, and we said it on a previous episode, the role that Xavier Johnson played the last 2 years was such a vital and pivotal role. And I think Brandon Ennis has an opportunity to take that to another level. I'm not going to sit here and say that he is, a Deebo Samuel type, but he just brings that physicality that he can be in the backfield at times. So it'll be interesting to see how they use him as well. But, it's going to be hard to keep JJ off the field. And then you still have, the Jaden Ballards and the Bryson Rogers and the Keon Graves and the Kojos. Like, you still have so much talent in that room. It'll be interesting to see how those reps shake up in practice, because I don't expect to see a Mecca, get a ton of reps in practice, because we all know what he can do. He'll get a ton of reps in the drills, and I'm sure he'll be out there with the first group, obviously, because they're learning a new offense. But I think they're going to really try to bring along, the Tates and the JJs and the Ennises, and really see what they can bring when they have to step up and be the guy. So you mentioned it a second ago. When you have that generational talent like Marvin Harrison Jr., even though we're bringing a crap ton of talent back, it's like, man, like, we've lost one of the best receivers in Ohio State history, if not the best receiver in Ohio State history. How do we fill that void of production and playmaking ability? So this room, man, is as much talent as they had. There still is a ton of question marks. So, Coach Hartline is one of the best in the country, so I trust him, but he's definitely got, his work cut out for him this spring to see who deserves to be on that field.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be fun to watch. Switching sides, to the defensive side of the ball, there's basically one starting spot open on the entire defense, and it's a linebacker.
Yeah.
This is a room that saw a little bit of attrition in the transfer portal. And has been really bitten by injuries. You take a dude like Court Williams, who I was told 3 years ago, you are gonna love Court, and then he tears his ACL.
Yeah,
and then he tears it again. And this is a dude that came in, California kid, and I don't know what to expect. If he can stay healthy, I'm sure he's gonna get a shot.
Yeah.
But I think it ultimately comes down to two guys as far as for the starting role. And I think you're going to see a lot of flexibility built into the defense, especially with the one position, and that's Sonny Styles and CJ Hicks. CJ is Captain Buckeye, all-world, 5-star. But, yes, there have been times he's looked really rough. But that just comes with reps. And there have been times that Sonny has still shown, a little bit of his inexperience. I mean, this is a kid that should be going into his sophomore year.
Yeah.
And is going to be a junior and has played meaningful reps from essentially year one.
Yeah.
And then I think you're also going to have, Cody Simon's locked in, it sounds like. And as long as he stays healthy, but I think, I think you'll see like Gabe Powers battle to be kind of his backup and get some of those reps too. I mean, who do you think kind of steals the shine here?
Yeah, it really comes down to what they want to do with Sonny. I do think because of his size, I do think he's going to have to move up closer to the line of scrimmage. My concern, and I don't want to say it's a concern because athletically, him and CJ are just freaks of nature that can play multiple spots and will make plays all over the field. Going from safety to linebacker, the discipline that you have to have with your eyes, the different reads that you have to make, it is a big change. And you can see CJ Hicks has been a will linebacker since he's gotten here, and he has struggled to make those changes, as far as making the reads and different things like that. At times, that athleticism, when he's been in the game, doesn't really show because I don't know what's going on with the processing. And so that's something that is going to have to get figured out. There were a few reps on film last year. I could think of the Penn State game specifically where, we blitzed both our Mike and our Will linebackers, and Sonny rolled down and he basically became the Mike linebacker, and he would, have to fill and do different things. And he didn't do the absolute best. So I know we get excited about those two guys, and I have the utmost confidence in them, but we've got to make sure that we understand, we've got to make sure that they are locked in on all those little details. And that's what, the challenge that Coach Laurinaitis is going to have, is to making sure those two guys are locked in. I will say this, and I know you just mentioned Gabe Powers. I would not rule him out as a will linebacker as well, because he has the athleticism. he is a see ball, get ball type of guy. So I do think he's going to factor in there somewhere. And then I think Arvell Reese will as well. So it's just super interesting because it's not the athleticism that is in question with any of our linebackers. It's the processing, the reading, and, what can the Buckeye defense do to make sure that we're allowing guys like Sonny and CJ to play fast all the time. So if I had to pick right now, I'm going to lean towards CJ just because that's where he's been the last 3 years. And I think, Coach Laurinaitis kind of, brought him up in those interviews. I think people do that. I think coaches do that at that level for a reason. But it's definitely going to be a fun battle. It'll be interesting to see how those reps are divvied up in the spring as well, because who Cody Simon is, what he brings. So obviously he'll be out there with the first group, but I expect to see a lot of Gabe Powers, a lot of CJ, and a lot of Sonny, and like a 3-man rotation, and just trying to figure out the ways to get the best 11 guys on the field defensively.
Yeah, I'm excited for Arvell Reese. I think that's going to be a guy that you see a lot on special teams.
Oh yeah, he's a stud, man.
Yeah, and I've said it since the day I met him. I could see Gabe Powers taking Jack Sawyer's role next year. His frame is the kid is built like a brick shithouse. I mean, there's no other way. He's tall, he's lengthy. He's got that Sawyer build to him. Yeah. So that's something to kind of keep in the back of our minds as this goes on. And you can't forget about a dude like Nigel Glover. And again, he's going to be a guy. He'll be a special teamer, I think. But so many linebackers we've seen at Ohio State start on special teams and work their way up. So definitely a room that does not lack talent. So that's going to be a fun one to monitor.
Yeah.
And obviously the most important position on the field. And as far as for a starting role, I don't think this spring matters a lick for the quarterback room.
Yeah.
Where this spring is going to go a long way is for the fall. And realistically, the future of that room. We know Will Howard came here to start. Will Howard did not come here to hold a clipboard and wear a headset.
Oh no.
Where it matters is the Aaron Nolan, Julian Say, and Lincoln Key conglomerate of guys and their battle.
Yeah.
The backup position is the most important position, honestly. That's not the starter.
Yeah.
As we saw against Missouri.
Yes.
If your backup is not ready, you're screwed.
You are in trouble.
So I think, and again, there's only so many reps to divvy out in these 15 practices.
Yeah.
And if you're Lincoln Keenholz and Devin Brown, obviously you want to be told you're at least the backup.
Yeah.
Both of those guys have shown no fear of competition. They have not backed down from a challenge. You had Devin Brown in the burning the boats, and but Julian Sand and Aaron Noland are, again, we don't see the practices most of the time, but stars don't lie all the time.
Yeah,
especially in the collegiate quarterback world.
Yeah,
I don't know. How do you divvy out 15 practices or reps with 4 guys?
Man, I'm going to be honest with you, man. That is not an issue that I've ever had when it comes to coaching. You go into the season with 2 or 3 guys that you think, are going to be in that quarterback room. You got a guy that you probably believe is going to be the starter, or you got 2 guys that are going to battle it out, and the guy's going to start, and the other guy's going to be a backup. And at the high school level, if the other guy's an athlete, you can try to find another way to get him on the field somewhere. When you get into the college world and you're making millions of dollars and all these coaches are paid to make these tough decisions, this is one of the tougher decisions you have to make. And it's not just the naming of the starter, it's what are the optics of all this? For instance, if you go out there in group 1 and day 1 at practice, it's Devin Brown taking those first reps because he's been here, you know, that's not a that's a tough look, because you brought a Will Howard in to be the guy. So Devin Brown's out there taking the first reps because he's been here and you're loyal to him, but is he really going to be the guy? You don't know. So you're going to see a rotation. I think, there's typically 3 huddles that they have, sometimes 4. I think you'll have a rotation of Julian Sayin. Oh, excuse me. You'll have a rotation of Julian Sayin and Aaron Nolan in that last group. You'll probably see Lincoln Keenholz and whoever the backup quarterback is will rotate in with that second group. And then you'll see Will Howard likely end up getting the lion's share of those reps. It'll be interesting to see where, as they progress, as they start to get comfortable in the offense, who separates themselves. I am of the belief that, Lincoln Keenholz did not play as bad as people believe that he did in that Missouri game for the situation that he was brought into, with the way the offensive line was playing. Like he did some really good things that made me see that he's got a lot to bring to the table. Like he is an Ohio State caliber quarterback. So I'm interested to see how that Lincoln and that Julian Sayin and that Aaron Nolan dynamic is going to really play out. But it's going to, as far as how the reps go, however many huddles you have, there's going to be 2 quarterbacks likely in each huddle, and you're going to have to create some sort of rotation. So if the second huddle gets, 8 plays and 7-on-7, then you could split it up 4-on-4. Or if it's the first group and you want Will Howard to get the majority of the reps and it's an 8-play session, then you go 5-3 or things like that. Like those are the things that you have to really truly sit down and plan out, not just for that day, but for the entire week, because you want that to be efficient and you don't want it to be a cluster. So you want to make sure those impactful reps, or the quarterbacks are getting those impactful reps. So, you typically see the reps split up that way. I've never seen a team have, legitimately 5 guys who are big time quarterbacks. So it'll be interesting, man. Like Coach Day's he's got his work cut out for him, man. This is a unique situation for sure.
Well, and it's not like, obviously, yes, Will Howard, we assume, is the guy, but this is a new system. So it's not like a situation where, it was CJ's second year. So, CJ, you take 2 reps and then we'll give somebody else 6 just to continue to progress them. We don't have that luxury because you want Will Howard to know the terminology, the verbiage. Because there's going to be times that they're going to go fast. I mean, it's Chip Kelly. I mean, are we going to go Oregon hyper fast? Probably not. But you never know. How do you think it shakes out? Do you think we keep them all?
Do I wish we would keep them all? Absolutely, because I think Devin Brown and Lincoln Keenholz have not ran away from any competition. They've welcomed it. They came to Ohio State for those challenges. So I have the utmost respect for those guys. I do think at the end of the spring, whoever is named the backup behind out of Lincoln or Devin, one of them is going to be gone. That is just my belief. If I had to put money on it, I would probably say it would be Devin Brown, just because you only get so much time to play this sport at the college level. So he may want to go get that opportunity somewhere else. And then you would have a quarterback room with Lincoln as the backup, or Julian Sayin or Aaron Nolan, either one. But now you're going into the spring with 3 quarterbacks, the following spring with 3 quarterbacks, and now they can battle it out. And then after that, somebody else is going to leave. So it's an interesting world that we live in. But if I had to put, money on it, man, like it's tough to even say, but I would think Devin Brown may be looking somewhere else at the end of the spring. But gosh, if we could get them all to stay, like, I just think they're all great kids and they all do things the right way. And I think they all represent Ohio State in such a great way. So I hate to put money on somebody leaving, but if I had to choose, I would probably say DB would be the one that's gone, and Lincoln or Julian would be the primary backup for the year.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. And then, looking long term down that room, you go into next spring with a Keenholz, say, and Nolan battle. And I assume Tavion St. Clair will be an early enrollee.
Yeah.
And then at that point, say Lincoln gets beat out by Julian Sayin or Aaron Noland, then he's got a decision to make, because like you said, you only get so many cracks at this.
Yep.
And if you want to move on, it's not a knock on a kid when you're in this situation. I mean, just like the Joe Burrow situation gets held against Ohio State by LSU fans all the time. How did you let Joe Burrow walk?
Yeah.
It's not like we picked Joe Burrow over Chugginoff. Like,
yeah.
I mean, Dwayne Haskins threw 50 touchdowns in a season.
Yeah, he played out of his mind.
And I still, to this day, if Joe Burrow is not hurt in spring, it may be Dwayne Haskins at LSU.
Yeah.
You never know. And kudos to the staff for being honest with Burrow that, hey, you're not going to start. And I think we've hit on it a little bit before. The fact that dude's still around the Woody all the time and comes to the big games, that tells you right there there's no hard feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Ohio State also has to prepare for a world where, not just one guy leaves after the spring, that two guys leave after the spring. A five quarterback room with Big 12 champion who's the perceived starter, and four other 5-star quarterbacks, high 4-star quarterbacks in a room. Sometimes you might have to look around and be like, hey man, like I might have an opportunity somewhere else to go get on the field a lot sooner. Julian Sayin coming here really threw a wrench into a lot of things, but it's a good problem for Ohio State to have. But, I think it's such an interesting dynamic. And I've been seeing some stuff on Twitter. It's kind of off topic a little bit, but message boards on Twitter, and there's still a lot of skepticism about Will Howard. People saying that he's not much different than Kyle McCord and things like that. The one thing I will say is that for any Buckeye fan or any just football fan in general, whether you're rooting for Ohio State or you're rooting against Ohio State, you could compare Kyle McCord and Will Howard when it comes to their stats and the type of quarterbacks that they are and things like that. But what you can't compare is their legs and their rushing ability. And I think, if we even get the same type of quarterback that we had last year as a thrower in Kyle McCord, the legs that Will Howard is going to bring into it. I mean, the dude rushed for 9 or 10 rushing touchdowns last year. Think if we had a quarterback who rushed for 9 or 10 touchdowns this year, I can tell you right now, we don't lose to the team up north. And we're probably, in the playoff, and we're playing, for a natty. I truly believe that, with the differences that we saw in the last, two losses. We lost to Michigan by what? 3-7. I can't remember what the score of the Michigan game was.
6, maybe 30-24.
Yeah. We lost to them by 6, and then we lost to Missouri by 11. So, what was it, 14-3? Yeah. So if you add in a quarterback that has an inkling of any sort of rushing ability, you're talking about, 9 or 10 touchdowns added. Like, that's the difference in a lot of games. So I want Buckeye fans to really make sure we're paying attention to that. The legs, that dynamic, and I know we got spoiled with CJ and his arm, but that dynamic that Justin Fields had as a runner, that even JT Barrett had as a runner, Will Howard brings that. Maybe not as like explosive as Justin Fields, but he's pretty freaking good with his legs. So that could be the difference in between a lot of games for us this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kyle McCord made some throws that were dimes. I mean,
yeah.
You and I talk every Saturday during the game, and there were plenty of times it's like, man, that's good.
Yeah.
My biggest knock on Kyle McCord from game 1 to game 12 was his pocket presence sucked.
Yeah.
and it never got better. And that's where Will Howard's legs come in, because guess what? When the pocket breaks down, you're going to run.
Yeah.
And that's something Kyle never did a lot of, and he was never a threat to do, and that's just not his game. Kyle was
Nope.
a pocket passer. And even Kyle kind of got thrust in last year. Last year was not supposed to be Kyle's year.
No.
Our entire quarterback room got thrown way off tilt when Mullet Man decided to come a year early and get some money.
Yeah.
And Quinn Ewers is good. I mean,
He's really good.
And if you believe the rumors that are out there, Ryan Day was pressured to allow and enforce certain things in the way of Kyle McCord, and in a way pushed Ewers back to Texas. Now, do I think Ewers was going to go home no matter what? Yeah. I mean, I think, kids get homesick. I get it. And college footballs became a business. And at the time, Texas did not allow high school NIL. You had some guys pushing, deals on Ewers, and, why not? But it did. It threw that room off a lot.
Yes, it did.
So I'm excited to see it, though. I think, like you said, Will Howard is better than people give him credit for. And Buckeye Nation worships JT Barrett. And I made the comparison from episode 1. I think he is a stronger, with a better arm, JT Barrett. So why are we already trying to find knocks on the guy when we haven't even got to watch him in a game yet?
No. Yeah, it's just, we've just been so spoiled, man. And the expectation for that room right now is just at an all-time high. So, it's a fun time to be a Buckeye fan, because you can debate this stuff, but I can only imagine the pressure that those 5 guys are feeling, not even to just battle with themselves, but dude, if you go out and you throw an interception, Will Howard, or you fumble the ball, or you get sacked when you could have tucked it and ran, oh my God, Buckeye Nation is we are going to jump on them, man. It's just crazy. It's a crazy, crazy dynamic.
The most popular guy on campus is the backup quarterback.
Yep.
So that's kind of the position battles that are really the ones out there to watch. We all as fans get sucked into the, I can't wait to see what this guy does. So I just wanted to kind of throw out a couple of names that, we're each excited to see if they find a role in spring and how that translates. 4 of my 5 are on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Kenyatta Jackson. Dude showed some flashes. On a team that lacks a lot of true 100% pass rushers, this guy is your stereotypical pass rusher.
Yeah, he is. He really is.
Excited to see what he can do. Hero Canoe, I think this guy is a beast.
He's a monster.
I'm sure that one of the names you're going to say is somebody that's probably going to compete with playing time for him.
Yeah.
And or Kenyatta Jackson. But that's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
The one non-defensive guy, I think G. Scott is still someone. There's something there. A dude who has stuck through hell and high water to be a Buckeye.
He's a Buckeye, man. He is a Buckeye.
And shout out to his dad.
Yeah.
Talk about a dude that keeps it real.
Yep.
One of my favorite Twitter follows. It doesn't matter the topic, but very rarely does he throw something out there and it not be like, you read it and you kind of analyze it and you're like, man, this dude gets it.
Yeah.
Another defensive guy, Caden McDonald.
Yeah.
Another
Stud.
Georgia kid. Another inside, outside guy. And then I don't know that we'll see him a lot this year, but Calvin Simpson Hunt. He kind of got lost in the shuffle of that recruiting class.
Yeah.
Because you had, what was it? Kyron Lee that decommitted, went to Auburn, and
Oh
everybody was
yeah,
all upset
yeah,
about.
yep.
But CSH, didn't play the game. This kid is long, and I love
Yeah,
a long corner.
he's
So those are
fast.
kind of,
He's a burner. He can fly.
and those are some dudes I'm just excited to see what happens for them.
Yeah,
What about you?
yeah. G. Scott. Just a little sidebar here on him. He's a guy that when we first got him, I just thought like, God, he's a big dude. Like he was just solid, and I was concerned, like not concerned, but I'm like, man, I could see him growing into like just like a flex tight end. And when they moved him to tight end, I've been to a lot of those practices, and I've there's spent a lot of time following Coach Hinton around, and obviously he goes with the tight ends a ton. And I just loved seeing the effort that G was putting into not just being a flex tight end, the effort that he was putting into becoming a physical player, no matter what, whether it was a blocker, whether it was on special teams, all of those things. Like I have enjoyed seeing him work, because that's the one thing like you can't question about G is how hard the dude plays. Like the guy plays hard. He is a Buckeye. He's had opportunities to go somewhere. I guarantee you he's had opportunities to go other places, and he stuck around. And the first guy on the list, and why I was bringing up G. Scott, I think Luke Kazmarek is going to allow G. Scott to be more of that flex tight end type of person that I think he can thrive as, because the area that he needed to work on the most was blocking, and it's improved mightily since he got first moved to tight end, but I still don't think it's a strength of his, so having a guy like Kazmarek come in from Ohio, one of the underrated, overlooked transfers that we have. Kazmarek is he's huge, and he wants to get his hands on you, and he wants to finish blocks. So I think having him, I'm excited to see what he can bring and what that allows us to do with a guy like G, what it allows us to do with Jelani. You know what I mean? So I'm excited for that. Bennett Christian's another guy too. I know he set out a little bit for some whatever reasons, but he's another guy that's a really good blocker as well. Another guy I'm really excited about, one of my favorite players on the team, is, I've said it probably every episode, Brandon Ennis. I just watch the violence that he runs with, how hard he plays, how much it means for him to go out and block for his teammates. Like, he's the type of guy that you want to root for. I'm not going to compare him to Deebo Samuel, but I think Ohio State could use him in similar ways that we see Deebo used with the 49ers. I think he just has that type of ability. He's tough. He's physical. I'm partial to anybody who played both ways in high school. He played defense, and there's a clip out there on YouTube where he broke up a pass on Jeremiah Smith, and he gets up talking reckless to him. Now they're friends and they know each other, but he got up talking crazy, and I love seeing that. So Brandon Ennis is another guy that I'm excited about. I started out with two offensive guys, so I got to go defense for this next one. I'm excited that we got Caleb Downs. I'm excited, that we've got, Lathan Ransom coming back. I think he's a stud. I think all our safety room is really good. Malik Hartford is going to be a very good player for Ohio State. A very good player. He has all the intangibles of, to be an elite safety at Ohio State. And I think now with Caleb Downs, having that just generational talent at safety in the room, and then having the veteran presence of Lathan Ransom, you are going to see Malik Hartford really develop this year. And he's going to have the potential to take those next steps. So now going into his junior year, he can be the guy that's out there next to Caleb Downs. The other guy I'm excited about, Luke Montgomery. That's no shock. I just think he's put in the work. He's 310 pounds now. He's not fat by any means. Like he's just a horse. Like he's ready to go. Like I said, he had a great interview the other day on 11 Warriors. When he's come back to Finley and we've caught up, he's just ready to go. He's ready for any challenge. So I'm excited for him as well. Caden Curry is such a special player, man. His motor just does not stop. And that dude, he's got to be on the field. He's got to be on the field. I don't know how they're going to do it, whether it's a rotation with JT and Jack, but we've got to figure something out because Caden Curry deserves to be out there. I'm excited for him. He's going to get a ton of reps this spring. And then the last person, I know I've given like 6 guys, but the last person, and I think he's gotten overlooked, is Dallin Hayden. It's great that we got Quinshawn. It's great that we got Trey coming back. But if we're going to go make a natty run and we're going to go deep into the playoff, you need more than 2. You need more than 2 running backs. And I think Dallin Hayden, whenever he's been given an opportunity, he has done great. I do want to see him improve his pass pro, but I also want to see the coaches kind of just play to his strengths as well. So that's the other guy I'm excited about. I don't expect Trey to get a ton of reps this spring. He's a senior. We all know what he can do. Quinshawn will get some because it's a new scheme. But Dallin Hayden is going to get a ton of work. So those are the guys I'm looking forward to seeing what they bring this spring and how they develop.
I was a little worried there wasn't going to be a Caden Curry reference, and then I was going to feel like I was off. I'm glad you mentioned Dallin Hayden. Coach Day was on 97.1, I believe, on Thursday or Friday morning, and I think they asked him about the running back room. I just caught the very tail end of it, and he used the phrase "a pair and a spare." And that's perfect. I mean, you're running an NFL linked schedule if you don't host, if you don't get a bye, in the playoffs. So, that's awesome. One last little thing on spring, a few things, I guess. Which coach do you think has the most to gain or lose this spring? As far as position groups.
Oh man, who's going to be under the microscope? It's going to be Coach Fry. He's got perfect alignment with the people that he's working for. He obviously was hired by Chip Kelly to be his offensive line coach, and Chip Kelly is Coach Day's mentor, so he's got perfect alignment. You got to get it right. And I know that's a lot of pressure, and I know he coaches his tail off. I've watched the way that he recruited Luke. I watched the way he interacts with his players and the relationships that he's built. But I know he's facing a ton of pressure, and he's got to be able to get the best 5 guys out there. And this spring is going to be huge into figuring those out. So I definitely think he's going to be really under the microscope. I also think Coach Laurinaitis is going to be under the microscope as well. We put you out there, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm saying, can you absolutely bring the best out of CJ Hicks? Are you going to be able to maximize him? And I think that's a challenge that Coach Laurinaitis is willing to take or willing to accept. So I'm excited to see how that develops on defense. But I think those are the 2 guys, but especially Coach Fry, that are going to be under the microscope to see what they can do with their guys.
Yep, I am with you there on Coach Fry as well. At the end of spring practice, second portal window opens up.
Yeah.
Do you think we go shopping anymore? I've got a few thoughts. If you see the scenario where Lincoln and Devin both leave, I think you go shopping for a vet QB, a depth piece. I also could see a scenario where you go get a receiver. As crazy as that sounds, if you do not love what you see after your top 4 guys, I think you go get somebody.
Yeah.
And the other, wild card is, what do you do if just some absolute stud enters? We'll throw out the name that obviously comes to my mind. What if Keon Keeley enters the portal? You don't say no.
No, you don't.
What do you think about as far as portal shopping in the spring?
I think, there's going to be a huge emphasis on the offensive line. I think they've made it very clear that they're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that they get it right up front. So I do think if they don't feel as comfortable as, we may feel with some of the guys, that after the spring, they could definitely go portal shopping for an offensive lineman, specifically right tackle or right guard. I do see a world where we do have, up to 4 receivers that could leave after the spring. Keon Graves and Kojo, I mean, they're so overlooked in that room. Both very incredibly talented. They've just are in a stacked room and not finding the field. So I could see a situation where they may leave. I could see a situation where Jaden Ballard, if he feels like I'm not, getting maximized anymore, like I'm going to get out of here as well. So, finding somebody in the portal is definitely a real possibility, depending on how everything shakes out with the wide receiver room. So I definitely think they will be looking for an offensive lineman. Yeah, I definitely think they will be looking for an offensive lineman, just because they got it. That's the spot that they have to get right. And I don't think they're going to, spare any costs to make sure that they get that right. So that's where I could see the portal shopping and happening. But, and obviously if a stud comes in like a Keeley or any other top or big name guy, like, yeah, I could see them being like, hey, we can't say no to this guy. Let's call up Schottenstein, see what we can figure out.
This shot.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Well, cool. That kind of wraps up the spring ball part. On to Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
This was brutal, yo.
Dude, it was terrible.
There's no other way to describe it. I'm actually going to make a change on mine from what I had written.
Okay.
I just don't think I can not keep him off. So performance-wise, obviously this is a category you've got to do, the GOATs and then your personals.
Yeah.
As far as the 4, we'll call them the GOAT category. I think you have to go Chris Carter.
Okay.
And again, outside of, our getting to watch him era, but you can't say no.
No, you can't.
And then, and this is in no order. And then you've got Marv. I mean, what Marvin Harrison did at Ohio State. I don't know that it would surprise anybody, but it was awesome.
Yeah.
And I can't take Chris Olave off. When you look at his numbers and what he did and the fluidity of his route running and and then this is where I made a change. So I'm going to give an honorable mention to Ted Ginn Jr.
Okay.
Dude really modernized the position at Ohio State.
Yeah.
I mean, he played quarterback in a bowl game the entire game.
Yeah.
I mean, but he was one of those dudes when you heard about him coming to Ohio State, and that was when I really started following recruiting super, super close. And it's like, this kid is legit. I mean, there's speed, and then there's Ted Ginn.
Yeah.
There's a reason that Chris Johnson would not challenge him to anything longer than a 40.
Yeah.
Because Chris Johnson knew he would absolutely get ran over.
Yeah.
But with taking Ted off, I'm going to put Joey Galloway on there.
There we go.
Everybody's going bananas over Xavier Worthy at the Combine yesterday. Joey still holds the true all-time Combine 40 record. It was like a 4.18.
Yeah.
So that's my 4 performance-wise.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and let you go. I'm sure you broke yours up too.
Yeah, I had to.
So go ahead and shoot your performance ones out there.
Okay, so I actually did the same exact thing that you did with Ted Ginn, because there was a name that I couldn't leave off. I just couldn't do it. So Chris Carter, obviously, that's a given. Marvin Harrison Jr., it's a given. I think Joey Galloway is a given as well. But my last person on my Mount Rushmore, I think, would have to be Terry Glenn. The season that he had, the ability that he had, the heart and the effort that he played with, the type of dude that he was. Like, I just remember being a little kid watching him, just thinking he was special. He had the visor on, he had the spat on his cleats. Like, he just looked like an absolute stud. I went back and forth between him and David Boston. Not gonna lie, David Boston was up there for me. But David Boston will go out there, no gloves, just freaking looking yoked. And, maybe he had some assistance at how big he got, but what is what it is. But I went back and forth on those two. But, Chris Carter, Marvin Harrison Jr., Joey Galloway, and Terry Glenn, for me, would probably be my 4 guys that I would say are the best receivers in Ohio State history.
And it's crazy. Like, you're not, when you look at like all-time touchdowns and stuff like, like guys like Paris Campbell, KJ Hill, like,
I know.
And and it's not a dig on these guys at all. And the ultimate, it's not a dig on, just because he did not get used at Ohio State until his last season, is Michael Thomas. Like,
yes.
My gosh. If we're going NFL Ohio State guys, Michael Thomas is number 1.
Yeah.
And then, same thing with Coach Hartline, honestly.
Hartline was pretty good.
There was a whole, if you believe everything's out there, there was some tiffs there, with the whole Beckman getting benched for TP. And, but yeah, I just want to make sure that, nobody takes that as a jab at Michael Thomas, because
no,
I watched Michael Thomas in his first spring game here after coming from Fort Union. Yeah. I'm like, this kid is legit.
Yeah.
And then it took us 2 years to throw him the ball and realize if it's within 100 yards of him, he's going to catch it. I mean, there's a reason that he literally made his Twitter handle, "You can't guard Mike," because you can't. But funny little Mike Thomas caveat, autograph signing story. He's doing a signing, and Mike Thomas was an absolute trash talker on Twitter. And I'm a big inscriptions guy, so like when you go get an item signed, the guy signs it, and then if you pay extra, they'll write a stat line or whatever. So I did the picture from right before halftime of the Alabama game, where he is mossing. I can't even think of the dude's name. Played for the Giants. From Alabama, was legit. Landon
Collins. Yeah, Landon Collins.
Who was no slouch.
No, he was he was so good.
My sister went to the signing for me, and I had put Post-it notes where I wanted things, and I had Thomas sign it, and then I had him do his 2 famous. I had him write, "You can't guard Mike," and "DB's lives matter." And he's like, "Does he really want that?" And she's like, "Yeah." And so he just thought that was the greatest thing ever that somebody asked for that.
That's awesome.
So my 4 personal favorites, and there's actually a repeat. There's a repeat here. Chris Olave.
Yeah.
3-star, all world, made his name in the Michigan game. Let's block a punt. Let's, and then a couple of unheralded Indiana kids. It's really weird. Terry McLaurin. Came in, wanted that OSU offer, earned that OSU offer, and now is, I'd say a top 10 receiver in the league.
He's pretty good.
Another guy who I just liked because he was gritty is Austin Mack.
Yeah.
He ran hard.
One of my favorite recruits that we got, man. I was definitely excited about him.
And then this guy, I don't know that you can actually put him on the wide receiver list, but Chris Gamble.
Yeah, you can.
Everybody Travis Hunter is doing his thing, but Travis Hunter is Chris Gamble 2.0.
Yeah, he is.
With a little more offensive skills, I would say. But Gamble was probably a hair better as a corner.
Yeah. The national championship year, I believe he had right around 500 yards receiving. I think he was the second leading
Yeah.
receiver behind Michael Jenkins. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
that's another dude
yeah,
who I almost had to find a spot for.
yeah.
Um, you know, we're gonna shout out your cousin Brandon, who's a massive Miami fan, and still to this day whines about that game.
Yeah, we're
There
gonna
was
get a
a
text
play
about that.
in the fourth quarter. Chris Gamble got absolutely mugged,
Yeah, he
and if
did.
they throw the flag, it never goes to overtime.
Nope.
So that's my 4 personal favorites.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we share two. We share two of the same. Um, Chris Olave, you know, when he came into that Michigan game, one of the lesser recruited guys in his class, but just an absolute baller, smooth route runner. He never, you just look at his facial expressions and just the way he carried himself, the way he ran his routes. Like you can just tell he was just smooth. Like he never felt pressure. And that's one of the things I was always so impressed by him. But his route running ability, his ability to go make plays, he had to earn his stripes on special teams, and then boom, out of nowhere, here he is, the Michigan game. So that was he's up there for me as one of my personal favorites. My next one would be Teddy Ginn. Teddy Ginn was just like you said, he was generational, man. What he did for, you know, Buckeyes and keeping that Glenville pipeline open and just the athleticism that he brought, the explosiveness that he brought to the kickoff return, the punt return game, how he could take the top of it off of a defense. And oh yeah, hey, you're a freshman and we're playing Oklahoma State in a bowl game, so we're gonna put you at quarterback a crap ton and you're gonna go win the game for us. So that was always something that I was like very impressed with by him. And he went on and had a really good NFL career as well. I had to throw Michael Jenkins in there, man. That Purdue game from the national championship year is something that I will always remember. It was the most boring game. A young, sophomore in high school, Jared Slater could watch, but man, like the dime that Krenzel threw him and to track that ball over your shoulder, like that's not an easy catch. And so that's something that always stands out to me. And I just think people forget about him so much because he was like, wasn't the fastest, wasn't the flashiest, but he just went out and did his job. And I think he was a second round pick or something for the Falcons, had a good NFL career. So definitely up there for me. But my favorite Buckeye receiver of all time is Terry McLaurin. And when I say that, it's not even close for me. You want to talk about a guy who just loved being a Buckeye. And one of my favorite moments of his was not even, any plays that he made on special teams or any plays that he made at receiver or the success that he's having right now in the NFL, is that when Chris Olave, a freshman, scores that first touchdown against Michigan, Terry McLaurin is sitting there with his arm around him, pointing to all the Buckeye fans like, this is that guy. You know what I mean? And he's like, he's a senior. Like, come on, man. That could have gone to me. You know what I mean? Like, that ball could have came to me. Like, but he's over here hyping his man up. So that will always stand out to me. And another honorable mention, and this is a guy who had one touchdown catch in his entire career. It's Cameron Babb. Now, I say Cameron Babb, last year, Cameron Babb's senior year, on my birthday, Luke Montgomery invited my dad and I to go to the Indiana game with him as a recruit. And we're in the front row. And I didn't know it was Cameron Babb's mom that we're sitting next to. But after he scored that touchdown, they put him in, he's got that big knee brace on. They're trying to get him in the end zone. He catches the ball. He gives his praise to Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And he comes over, and the amount of emotion that his mom had when he came over to give the ball to her and hug her and things like that. Like, dude, that was one of the most special moments I've ever seen in my entire life. My dad and I are criers. We were like choked up. Like, trying not to look over there, and you could see it. There's a picture on TV when he comes over and hugs his mom, and my dad's in the background just like cheesing. Like he is just so happy to see it. So it was just such a cool moment. But for that guy, man, ACL after ACL, like talk about perseverance, talk about a representation of what Ohio State is and the brotherhood. Like that dude will always be up there as just a tough kid. And he's the embodiment of what a Buckeye is, man. So I had to give him a shout out, man. That dude was highly recruited, and I wish he would have been able to stay healthy because he was really good.
It's funny you say that because I was literally sitting here about to say that before you did. That's
awesome.
As you can see behind me, the photos and stuff, and that is still a photo I want. So Cameron Babb, if you ever see this, let's do some business and make it work. And a special shout out to Scary Terry because he does follow me on Twitter.
There we go.
That's my fame to claim.
Look at you.
Or my claim to fame, I should say.
There we go.
So yeah, that's kind of our Mount Rushmore stuff. Gotta do a weekly shout out. I'm gonna throw one out there. He'll never hear this, but shout out LeBron on scoring 40,000. And good luck to the IT boys this weekend in Tennessee.
Yeah.
What do you got shout out wise?
Brett Payne, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to hate me for this. LeBron James is the GOAT. I don't care what anybody thinks. I love Jordan Cologne just as much as you did, but LeBron is the GOAT. I'm tired of arguing with people about it. I don't care how many championships Jordan won. LeBron is the GOAT. All right. Controversial.
Those are fighting words. BP. Look, BP is going to hunt us down.
Oh, man, I know. He probably just unsubscribed to the podcast.
BP is the dude. The first year I ever played slow pitch softball, I thought we were going to have a fight over number 23 because he had to have it.
Oh, man, that's awesome. No, quick shout out. Try not to get emotional, man, but I want to give a shout out to my wife. Obviously, she's at home right now taking care of a sick daughter. But she's big into CrossFit. She kills it in CrossFit at our gym, Pure Function CrossFit. Shout out. And she's 8 months postpartum. She has taken CrossFit so serious for the last 5 years. And this was like the first time she was able to be back after having a baby. And she just absolutely crushed this workout. 24.1, and the whole gym was around her, and it was just such a cool moment. I'm coaching her, like yelling at her, coaching her. It was such a cool moment. Probably one of my favorite moments outside of our kids being born that we've had in our 10 years of being together. But man, like that was pretty cool to see. So shout out to my wife, Erin Slater. She's just such a beast, and just proud of her, man, and all the hard work that she's put in. And she's the best wife and the best mama bear ever. Hopefully that gets me some brownie points too, because I didn't put the dishes in the dishwasher either. So hopefully that gives me some love. I know I'm going to get murdered for that, but it is what it is.
Yeah. And shout out to your guys' CrossFit fam. Those guys have been insanely supportive of this.
Yeah, man.
For us.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's not hard to tell that I myself don't CrossFit. I might cross eat. But those guys have been awesome. So shout out to those guys, and anything we can do for those guys, we'll help them out.
That was good. That's the first time I've ever heard cross eat. That's good stuff, man.
I just came up with that on a whim. So at the end of the day, we try to bring humor to your lives. So
yeah, there we go.
Shout out everybody, and I'm going to throw a post up on the Facebook page. We're going to modify the giveaway.
Okay.
We've had awesome support. So instead of hitting that target number, because it is the off season, we're going to change up the giveaway a little bit. Details to come. Keep an eye on the Facebook.
All right, man. Hope everybody has a good week, man.
All righty. We will see you guys next week. Stay tuned. We may have to modify recording next week, depending on travel arrangements.
Good call.
But we'll keep you guys in the loop.
See ya.